Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Daily BALM. This is our 12 Principles interview program that we have 2 or 3 times a month on Wednesday evenings. I'm your host for the evening, Beverly Buncher. Now we have different coaches host this program. I'm the founder of the BALM, and this week we're looking at Principle 3. It is important to let go without giving up or giving in. I call this the pivotal principle, which means it's the point at which we go within. We look at what is happening inside us that's affecting our lives and the lives of the people we love. And what changes do we need to make in ourselves in order to have a stronger, more positive impact? The long version of Principle 3 is it's important to let go of our obsessions without giving up on our loved one and without giving in to their manipulations. Our guest this evening is Hannah Evans. Hannah is an author. This is so exciting. I'm going to read her bio, but I just want to show you her book. It is so wonderful. Who sent it to me again? Stacy. Stacy sent me this book. So you know Stacy Karchner, one of our coaches, who is so amazing. And she sent me this book and she said, I know you're going to love it. I know you're going to want to share this with families. And it blew me away. So I'm looking forward to, we've been planning this for, I think, a couple months. We had hoped to have it during National Recovery Month, but it just didn't work out. So I'm glad we're doing it now. And let me tell you about Hannah. Hannah Evans, formerly Gerhardt, was raised in Fayette County, Pennsylvania. Her family resided on Chestnut Ridge, nestled in the Appalachian Mountains. Hannah is a graduate of Penn State University, where she earned a bachelor's degree in business. Subsequently, she earned her master's in education from West Virginia University. The first 5 years of her teaching profession were in West Virginia at Glenville High School and Richwood High School. The following 5 years were in Pennsylvania at Chambersburg Senior High School, and she's currently at New Oxford Middle School. Inspired by her grandmother's love of genealogy, Hannah has taught history and the social sciences. From her life experiences, she understands the hardships of poverty and the struggles of being raised in Appalachia. As a teacher, she knows the unique challenges and emotional hardships faced by her students. Hannah created Annie's Appalachian Adventures, a series of 5 books, is it?
Right now, 3.
Now there are 3, but there will be more. And to help mend broken hearts with the hopes that all children can love themselves and achieve their dreams. That is such a beautiful mission, really something. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you. Thank you for
Really. Oh, we are so glad you're here. You're one of us and we're one of you, and it's just good to have people out there in the world doing good things, and we see that you are. So Hannah, you're writing this series called Annie's Appalachian Adventures. Now, is it true that you plan to have 5, or did I make that up?
I'm sure one day I will have 5. I currently have 3. So yeah, we just continue to add and add to the series.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading more. I'm reading the letter, which blew me away. Could you tell us more about how you came to write this series and what you hope to achieve with it?
Well, I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, and I've been teaching for approximately 15 years, and I teach generally American history. And I taught in West Virginia. And there was a moment in my classroom that really inspired me. At that point, I was teaching high school. And I had a student in my class say, Miss Gerhardt, if you would go outside and shake a pill bottle, people would come running. And I'm like, what on earth are you talking about? And he was like, yeah, if you go outside and shake a pill bottle, people will come running. And I just was kind of floored at what he was saying. And the room it was really quiet. And of course, I had history stuff up on the board that, they could really care less about. So, and, so the student was very passionate, and he started on this whole speech about pills and drug use in our area in West Virginia. And by the end of it, he is naming every family member and what pills that they're doing. And I was just shocked. I remember taking a seat. I could tell like he just needed space to talk about it. And I sat down and I listened and I looked around the room. I'm teaching high school. So none of the kids were smirking, none of them were smiling. There was nothing. And
They
it
weren't
dawned,
making fun of him, in other words.
no. And it dawned on me that they had a piece of this story. And it really clicked in my brain finally. I understood why they had like they didn't believe in themselves. Like I knew that they could do well on these assessments and they didn't think they could. And I could see why their self-confidence was lower. Um, and it really clicked. And also through myself, by watching that, I kind of reflected to my inner child of when I was a child. And I could understand because of my situation and being raised in Fayette County, the second poorest county, why these children had shame and guilt. And so I moved 10 years later. I've been in Pennsylvania now in Gettysburg for 10 years. And when I moved here, I had a lot of time on my hands because I worked a lot with the children. I would plan like 2 field trips a year and an AP class and every program that came along. And I thought, I want to do something else to help, but I'm not sure, at that moment what it was. And I started thinking about it and I wanted to write a children's series. And at first I thought, oh, a history series. And then I
Mm.
thought, I want to write about things that children really need. And they need to, about the experiences and the emotions that they're having. And so I decided to write a series that could still help children in Appalachia with these emotions.
Mm.
And what I hope to achieve with this is that, it chips away at the stigma of substance use and mental health, and it helps children and families heal. And I hope it's a piece of their healing process.
So this is the letter, and this is about do you want to say it? Should I say it?
Oh, sure.
So,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So this story is for children who have a loved one with a substance use disorder. And Annie is the main character, and she receives a letter from her mom. And it's implied in the story that she's in a rehabilitation center and she's getting help. And the story explains to children in kid-friendly terms what it is an addiction. It explains to them that it's not their fault. And it explains to them that they are loved, that they are special. And at the end of the story, Annie spends time, she's sharing her letter that she receives from her mom with her grandmother, her trusted adult. And so the story is to be an empowering story and a resilience-based story.
Beautiful. And it really was. I read it and I loved it. What are the other 2 books?
So I have 2 other books. Let me see here. Okay, so my other one, oh, I'm sorry, I put it on blur.
Oh, okay. You don't,
Oh, can you, oh,
you can take it off. Can you take it off? Blur?
yeah,
Is
let
it a
me see
mess
if
in
I
there?
can take it off. Okay.
I don't think I can. It's okay. When you hold it right in front of you, we can see it.
Oh, okay. I am so sorry.
That's okay. So it's called blueberry ice cream?
Blueberry ice cream. And blueberry ice cream is about embracing people who are different. So in this story, Annie and her dear friend Hope, they have a sleepover and they eat blueberry ice cream late at night. And their grandma's like, you shouldn't do that. You're going to have a weird dream, you know? And so Annie and Hope go to school the next day, and all the kids have different blue skin tones, like the blueberry ice cream, except she and Hope. And the children refer to her as vanilla and Hope as chocolate. So she goes throughout her day, and people are treating her differently because of how she looks. And she's just mind blown at this, and she can't understand. You know, people aren't trusting her. Her teacher is saying she can't learn, and and so she wakes up and it's a dream. And they unpack this story with Hope, and Hope confides that, you know, she's one of the few African American girls in her community, and how like sometimes she's just not quite sure why people are treating her the way that they are. And so Mama chimes in and says to the girls, she explains the term discrimination, and she explains that they were bringing to the spice to that blue world, and that they were bringing the flavor, right? And at the end of it, the girls, you know, are loving each other for who they are. You know, Annie's saying to Hope, you know, I you're chocolate, and I love you, you know, for who you are. I'm sorry. You are a real friend, Annie. I am chocolate and I am beautiful. And you, my vanilla friend, are beautiful too, Hope says. And then on the last page, it says, everyone should have some blueberry ice cream before they go to bed one night. The world would be a lot kinder.
Oh,
So
very sweet.
thank you. Thank you. I just think it's one of those stories that a lot of people have good hearts. They just don't know how to talk about it,
Mhm.
you
Yeah,
know?
certain topics are very difficult. And what's the third one?
And the third one is called My Rainbow. And let me see if I can kind of get it. There we go. My Rainbow. And My Rainbow is for children who have a loved one who is incarcerated. So I did some work at a rehabilitation center with ladies, and that might come up later through COI, Children of Incarcerated People Partnership, and they were talking to me about being incarcerated. And then I have a dear friend who she's a school counselor for decades, and she was telling me before, Hannah, I do not have a resource in this. Could you please help me, you know, have something? And so I started writing My Rainbow, and I also went to a training and received more information about children incarcerated. And at that point, I felt like, oh, I could put this story together. So I wrote this story, and it's a sad story. Although, you know, we end it with the use of imagination as a coping skill.
Mhm.
And at the end of it, Hope shares her feelings. Hope is the main character with her school counselor and her teacher. And at the end, she's being hugged. And it says, together, the school counselor, the teacher, and Annie comfort Hope by telling her she is loved and surround her with arms full of hugs. So in this story, Hope, you know, it starts off as a monologue, and she's talking about her mom being incarcerated. And the rainbow is her mom and her love for her mom. And she's going on and saying that her rainbow has been taken away. And
Mhm.
she finally confides in Annie. And then it goes into that rest of the story as I was explaining. Um, so what's interesting about this book is that it's really hard for me to read to children. I get
Mm.
very emotional. Like I try to keep my composure. And then it wasn't going to be the next one that I was going to publish in my series. Um, But I read it to a group of children in Southern West Virginia, and they loved it. It wasn't published at that point. So I would read it and let them draw images, and then I would read some more, draw images. And at the end of it, I said to them, did you like my story? And they were like, you know, and I said, you don't have to fluff my feathers. Like, tell me the truth. And and it was a resounding yes. And then I said, why? Because I honestly, like, this is a it's just a hard topic, I think was really what it is. And this little girl raised her hand, about 10 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, cutest thing. And she said, because it's about real life. Your stories are about real life. So they could identify with this story and the characters and what was happening. And, and they loved, I think, where it turns to that the child is being seen, the child's being heard, and they're being loved on. And yeah, so that's why I published it as my third book.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
And can we get these books through Amazon, or how do people
They're
get them?
on my website. I do have them on Amazon. I'm still kind of a novice at Amazon, but I have them on my website, and it's CuriousKid.org.
CuriousKid.org. We'll
Yes.
put that up before the end of the interview.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you so
So
much.
in the BALM, which means Be a Loving Mirror, we teach families of those with mental illness and addiction how to cope, how to get their lives back, and how to help their loved ones. How do you feel your books contribute to family recovery?
Well, I have a nonprofit and it's Curious Kiddos Educational Resources where I publish my books and I also give trainings. Um, and I have completed like rehabilitation sessions with ladies, and I've also read my stories, and then I'll do lessons with children. But through
Mhm.
that organization, I have worked with a number of people, and I've mentioned before Koi, but that's where I've really had the opportunity to see how my book can impact families. So, Koi is Children of Incarcerated People Partnership. They're out of Frederick, Maryland, and they're a beautiful organization that that has a number of parts to it. What I was able to participate in are their lessons that they give to for parents who are parenting from afar, they'll say. And so I took the letter into a rehabilitation center and I read it to these ladies. And it was so beautiful for me to see how this piece helped them feel comfortable in the space and then be able to tell their stories and
Mhm.
be very honest. And they were then excited to take this book and have it as a tool to read it to their child. They were planning to FaceTime and they were so excited. They loved the way that it was written in child friendly terms.
Mhm.
And they, felt that it, I think for them, it was going to hopefully help open up a safe and honest conversation. And, my goal is that it's used as a tool in that healing process for the child and
Right.
for the parent.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Um, I think that the need for books like yours is so universal. Um, so many states have been rocked by the opioid epidemic, yet you set your book in West Virginia. Could you tell us about what you saw there and how that impacted your book topics?
Yes. So when I was in West Virginia, I've lived in West Virginia for 10 years, and I lived in Morgantown, and then I lived in two small little communities, and it was very close knit. And I saw a lot of heart. I would say heart, and especially my students. They were very hardworking and they were very empathetic for others. And I'm not saying that they were perfect and like everybody loved to learn, children are children.
Yeah.
Um, but once they realized, you know, a, somebody like me being from an outside, right, outside of the state, that I genuinely cared about them and that I was going to try to give them as many opportunities as I could, um, that their love for me just came right back.
Mhm.
And so the children understood struggle. And so they would really help others that they've seen around them. Um, and so you're asking, and how this impacted my book. If Annie had a last name, it would be Mullins, which is common in West Virginia. And she's adventurous. She has a spirit. She's relentless in her optimism. But while I was there, I also saw the effects of the opioid epidemic and poverty and struggle. Um, in my little town, it was like 40 minutes to a Walmart or the hospital.
Wow.
And our grocery store went out of business, and we had a dollar store. And there were a lot of people who were struggling with substance use, and they were very sick. It was evident. And, that experience is reflected in my books, and especially the first one, The Letter. Every
Mhm.
book that I write, it's influenced by my students. So, like blueberry ice cream is also influenced by my students, and things that I saw and experienced with my children. For example, I had a foreign exchange student from Mexico, and he was crying to me one time about names he was called on the school bus.
Mhm.
And it broke my heart, of course, because I mean, here's this really sweet, very genuine, sweet child, and and that's just horrible in general. Um, So I was inspired to write that book because if I can get kids to understand what that might feel like, if I can put them in their shoes, maybe they'll be more empathetic. Maybe they'll be more understanding. And so every book that I write is really inspired by my students.
Wow. That's amazing. So you taught in West Virginia and you teach in Pennsylvania. Um, when you teach or taught about addiction and mental health, how was it different in one place or the other? Because they both have serious opioid challenges.
Right. And, preparing for this, I have to tell you this statistic that I found. Um, It was at WVU at the College of Law between 2027 and 2012. Over 780 million opioid pills went into the state of West Virginia.
Wow. Between 1997, you mean?
No, 2007
2007.
and 2012.
5-year period.
5 years.
How many?
700 million opioid pills.
That's impossible. That's
And this
horrible.
amounted to an average of 433 opioid medicines for every resident. So I'm assuming that means 433 bottles for every resident.
Horrible. I know you told me that they just gave out pills and bottles like it was candy or something.
Yeah, like exploiting people for
Right.
money. Um, and I'm sorry, back to what you were saying. So
Mhm.
teaching in West Virginia, when I'm using my books and working with nonprofits and telling people and reading my stories, in West Virginia, the issue is so prevalent. And, couple that with poverty, generational poverty, and all the statistics that go with that. I think they're more open and willing to talk about problems
In West Virginia
in
rather
West
than in
Virginia.
Pennsylvania. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
And
We have a lot of Pennsylvanians, but I don't think any are on the call tonight to answer to see if they agree. But, you know, it makes sense in a way. Well, I don't know if it makes sense. I mean, I know that in Pennsylvania, the BALM is in central Pennsylvania, York, that whole area. The BALM
Mhm.
is well known. Um, family prison counselors send families to the BALM. Churches send families to the BALM. but I don't know about, what it's like out in the communities.
Yeah, I find a little more shame and guilt. And when people find out, oh, that I wrote this story, then it's kind of this side conversation like, hey, my cousin so and so. Then they
Mhm.
want to talk to me about it, which is great.
But
But
not in public.
exactly. Like
Hmm.
I see that, and maybe that's just been my
No,
um
I mean, that's real.
yeah,
That's real. But
yeah.
it's not like that in Virginia, in West Virginia.
I find that people are more open for, not that everybody would be, of course, everybody's in their process, of
Yeah.
um, but I do. I could walk. One time I walked into a little boutique shop and I started talking to the owner about just shopping. And then I told her about my book and she loved my book. I gave her one and she's like, I'm giving this to my grandchildren and I'm so glad you did this. And, it's like
Hmm.
at the end of it, I walk out and I felt like I got a pep talk.
Right.
And it
Right.
happens continuously while I'm there.
Right. But it doesn't happen so much in Pennsylvania. It's a
No.
shame because it's really needed there as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Now, that's not to say that I haven't worked with amazing organizations.
Right.
I have drug and alcohol commissions. Um, Currently, soon I'll be reading at my local YWCA. So, I have met some wonderful people, but just the sense that I feel when I'm out in the community,
Right.
it's different.
Well, so is that part of why you keep spending time in West Virginia because they're so open, or what is it that keeps you going?
Mm. That's a really good question. Yeah, I'd say one, it's very receptive. And there are so many organizations that are trying to help in different ways, which I'm sure happening in Pennsylvania too.
Yeah,
Um,
it is.
I'm sure. Um, but yeah, I guess it's just that it feels like that door's open a little
Hmm.
more.
Hmm. And it might also be because you're a West Virginia girl and you have a reputation there.
You're right. Like I attend
You're known.
WVU. Yes.
And
Yes.
as you become more known in Pennsylvania, like as some of the BALM coaches start to share your stuff, I think that same thing could happen there. Um, just like Stacy sent me your book, which I thought was really cool. There's a lot of coaches in Pennsylvania. Um, so what have you learned over these years of sharing Annie's story with the world?
I've learned that children know a lot. They're very intelligent, they're very receptive. And when we're talking about tough topics, they just need the permission to talk about it, to know that they can talk about the elephant in the room. So, with my book, The Letter, I went throughout West Virginia through a program called Energy Express. It's a literacy program in the summertime, and I volunteered to read my story. And so I've read this story probably over to 200 children at least now. And what's fascinating to me is that I'll read this story and sometimes I'll come to a certain page where they see addiction in the storybook and I'll have a reaction. Sometimes I've literally seen kids' eyes go to quarters because they can't believe the word addiction's in the storybook. And sometimes they'll just little kids, smaller children will just blurt out, my daddy does drugs. And sometimes I'll read this page and I'll read it to you if you don't mind.
Hmm.
Um, and they'll totally ignore the word addiction. And I have to go back and
Mhm.
reread it and say, what's wrong with Annie's mom? So it
Mhm.
says, but then I look at your photo, Annie, and I grow stronger. Never feel guilty or that you are to blame for my addiction because you are the reason that I keep trying and growing stronger. So
Mhm.
once I finish that page, I'll ask the children, what's wrong with Annie's mom? And
Mhm.
sometimes we have to redo it. By the end of it, the children can give me almost a textbook definition of an addiction
Mm.
between the group. And
Wow.
then from there, they might start talking about addiction at home. I had a group that talked about witnessing an overdose, is basically what they were talking about in their own words. So I think I've learned that children just need permission to talk about the
Mhm.
elephant in the room. The other thing I've learned, like personally, is that children guide me. I feel that's how I'm told what to do next.
Mhm.
To me, this is a calling, and these are gifts that were given to me that
Mhm.
I'm blessed that I can, share this. And I have to listen to the children and what they're wanting. Like I was explaining with my rainbow, it wasn't
Mhm.
my pick for the next one, but it's what I felt they wanted and literally
Right.
they loved. So I have published it
Right.
for the third one.
So, how do you turn these tough topics into kid-friendly books?
Well, I'm very blessed. I feel like this is a gift. And I think it derives from that I've been a teacher for 15 years. And so I'm teaching really tough topics. I've taught psychology, civics, American history, and I've had to boil things down for children to understand. So I've had that skill set. Um, and I've been telling stories for all of these years, and stories are character building and empathy. And so when I sit down to write these stories, I look back at them and I just think about, I look at them and I think they're like kind of like a quilt because the different lines are like different pieces of my life. And I can point to where I learned like the power of yet, or, I'm looking at things that I needed to be told as a child.
Mm.
And with that, I pull these pieces together and I, try to make something beautiful and I hope impactful.
Beautiful. So, is there any special message that you would like to give to parents of children who may have a relative or even parent who has an addiction or mental health problem?
I think therapy is so helpful. And I'm a huge supporter of that. I think all children need a positive person, a trusted person that they can talk to, like their person. Like in my story, Annie has her mama and she can share her feelings. So kids need a trusted adult and a safe place where they don't
Mhm.
feel judgment and they can talk about the real issues. And that
Mhm.
is so healing for a child.
Mm.
The other thing I would say is that to the opposite of that effect, we can't act like the children don't know anything or that we shouldn't talk about these topics with children because that's just going to grow shame and guilt, and children are going to make up their own narrative. And generally, they blame themselves. We
Mm.
blame ourselves in some way, shape, or fashion. It was our fault that this happened. And so, like mushrooms in the dark, we can't leave these topics in the dark. We have to bring light to them. And with the light, we can share our feelings, tell our truth, and then children can heal.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's open it up for questions and conversation. If everybody can put their cameras on, and Joan, let's just go into a gallery, all of us, rather than be in the pin. We have a bunch of people here who have experience with kids, their own, other people's. Do you guys have any questions for Hannah or any comments about what she shared today? We'd love to hear from you. How are you?
I have a question.
Doing good.
Oh, hey, go ahead, Pam. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I can
Go
ask
ahead,
one.
dear. Go ahead.
I just wanted, first of all, to say bravo to you for reaching out to kids, because there are a lot of kids that are affected by addiction and drug use, and they don't understand it, but they know that it's present. They don't know what it is, and so being able to put it in their words in a story, that's remarkable. and to have a tool like that to share is you do have a gift.
Mm.
And so what has been one of your most effective moments with children? Is it do you work with them all in groups or
I will work with them however I can.
Mhm.
I'm going to these organizations and just saying, please let me, read to your children. And so I kind of just show up and meet their space. Sometimes it's usually, I'm working in the summers when I'm doing this. So I'm showing up at kids' camps or, their day camp. And I'm giving such a time period. So sometimes I'll just read the story and I'll do a short little exercise, or sometimes I'll read the story and then we'll work on our coping skills. We'll make a personalized coping skill plan. So I just kind of adapt to what I'm given, and I'm just thankful for the space that I'm given. But I wanted to add a statistic to what you were saying. So, according to the National Association for Children of Addiction, 1 in 4 children go home to a parent suffering from a substance use disorder in America.
Yeah, I
Wow.
believe that. I do.
Yeah.
So when you go, you just do like a random group of kids and you just read the story and then whoever responds to it, like at a library or whatever. It's not like for children of addiction in family or whatever.
Well, I've had different spaces. So I haven't been able to work. I'm trying to think if I've worked with, it's basically, it's more of like you were saying, a library space or a kids camp. Not necessarily have I worked with a group where I knew every child in there,
Mhm.
had that background,
Yeah,
but the
that's great
likelihood
that
of it's very high.
That's great though, because then that gives a child an open space that's maybe never had it before, and has kept that hidden or protected, a loved one from that. So very good. Very good.
Thank you, Pam. How about you, Kenny? Wouldn't Margaret love to hear about this?
Oh boy, yeah. First of all, Hannah, thank you for the time today. You brought just some interesting thoughts, all over. I taught in Nelsonville, Ohio, which is very, very close to Morgantown, West Virginia. It's kind of hard. It's not Appalachia, but and I taught sixth, seventh, and eighth graders at a very young age. I was 22, 23. And I wish I knew now what I know now. I wish I was down there again, because I was blown away quickly by, within a month, the experience of eighth graders driving to eighth grade class. They were driving. It was,
Because they were 16 and flunking, or because they were driving? Oh,
or they were 15 and they were just driving anyways. But
yeah,
they were older. They were older. I mean, it's
yeah.
so you were just kind of, what you were going through, just describing. It just brought me back. And a lot of the parents um were growing, you know we're botanists in a way, if you know what I mean. And it was very, it was, they were accustomed to it. And it wasn't just the kid that had the parent that was a botanist. It was all the kids. They all knew, and it didn't phase them whatsoever. But it phased me. So you brought me back to that. I'm I was taken back, and I love how you were like, these kids are resilient and they carry themselves and they're optimistic in these places that aren't so much. And I was thinking about, you had mentioned, and I really believe that the balm is foremost trying to create a safe place at home for everyone in the family, and everyone. And I do know that no one can heal unless there's a safe place.
Mhm.
And you had mentioned, that these kids needed a safe place. And, I'm under the impression that they don't have a safe place to go. School's probably not a safe place. Home's not a safe place. Your story with the letter, the connection of the grandmother being that safe place, just that one place in their life.
Mhm.
And I really don't have a question because, and I don't want to assume that there aren't safe places, for these kids, but there aren't many. And kudos to you, just like Pam said, for creating a safe moment for those kids. I was kind of taken back where the kids are only safe with themselves in a way, where they carried that optimism and everything else, and all these other places just kind of chip away at that over time. And it just made me feel, I want to be a coach of this of BALM, and I want to do this even more so now after what you explained. Because I truly feel that the primary focus of BALM is to create a safe place at home, just one place for kids or anybody. And we need more of that if we are going to have any healing whatsoever in
Mhm.
anything. We need safe places. So, sorry I don't have a question. I'm just
No,
just
it's
taken
fine.
back by what you presented. So thank you, Hannah. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. That was a lot of beautiful connections. And I think like that's such a important aspect, yeah, creating that safe place. And for children, I just think if they have one person that they know genuinely believes in them wholeheartedly, like what a difference that makes. And whether that's a teacher or, grandma, a lot of the children in Appalachia and some of them, a lot of them end up being raised by their grandparents. And yeah, so and sometimes that wise generation, can be that safe place to fall. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to share? I see Patty's here and Denise. You're welcome to. Don't have to, but we welcome. We're really glad to see you tonight. So I'd like to share Hannah's contact information. If you could put it in the chat and tell it to us. If people want to reach you, name, email, phone number, could you get that in the chat?
Sure.
And then say it out loud so that people who are listening could also reach you.
So it's Hannah Evans, and my phone number is 724-984-9749.
Okay.
My email address is curiouskiddos, and that's KIDDOSEDU @gmail.com.
Great. Beautiful. You never know, someone may catch this on YouTube and want to bring you to their school, or maybe one of our folks will want you to come and speak at a conference or something. So this has been wonderful. We really appreciate you being here. And remember, everybody, be a loving mirror. Thanks. Good night. Thank you, Hannah. It was just wonderful to speak with you again and hear about the good work you're doing.